Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman. And everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day because we have a great show planned for you where, of course, it is the third, well, actually, no, we had to time shift this. Well, not time shift it, but he was scheduled to be on the third Thursday. Now we're on the fourth Thursday. And, well, I have no idea what Thursday we're on. No, I'm right. Fourth Thursday. Yeah, and you know, because of some personal appointments, we had to change it, and therefore, well, Marcel, our resident Linux correspondent, will be joining us today to talk all about Linux. So, if this is your bag, I know that you know, I say this often. Our Linux fans are some of the most ravenous and excitable, and you know, when they don't get their monthly fix, when they feel like they, you know, whenever Linux gets bumped for the month, they get really upset. So with that being said, we're going to bring on Marcel here in just a minute. But before we do, a couple of things, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find the show notes. Marcel puts a lot of effort into making them look really good, very comprehensive. And of course, you can check those out at Computer America. Also, be sure to check out the show notes for, of course, links to websites and things like that. The live video stream, which is also at twitch.tv/Computer America, and the social media contest, which should be up and running here any day now. So all that and more at Computer America. Everyone, check that out. So with that being said, we're just going to go ahead, jump in, invite Marcel on, and you know, hey, and get this whole thing started. So as I said before, Marcel Gagnier, longtime Computer America correspondent, Linux expert, aficionado, and advocate, evangelist, whatever synonym you'd like to throw in there. Marcel, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I am doing. I'm sorry.
Are we still echoing?
Yeah, just a little bit, but it is, but it's bearable. It's completely fine, and you don't echo. I echo a little bit, so you're perfect.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So everyone, again, Marcel Gagnier. Marcel, how you been?
I've been fine. It's January. It's freezing at the moment. Actually, yesterday was like a really weird day because we had snow and ice and cold. Then it warmed up and we had rain. And by meaning of warmed up, it warmed up like 25 degrees in one day. And now we're back to ice. And but it's other than that, it's just January. I'm just waiting for the summer now.
No, let's see. We're expecting snow here a little bit. I know that a lot of the places here in the States, they have been experiencing a lot of really bad weather. So I'm glad that you're doing well and you're holding up well. So just opening up the show notes, anyone out there watching the video portion, there you go. And, you know, because I thought having the Windows background isn't the best thing on our Linux show. Yeah, so I guess before we get started, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, your background, your pedigree, and, you know, if...
My pedigree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a little wee chihuahua. I mean, I don't know. No, actually, my pedigree. Geez, that, you know, I don't know how to answer that. I really have no idea. But for the record, I've been writing about and talking about Linux and open source software for a long time now. A lot of people who know me probably from a column that I did for 10 years running straight in the Linux Journal called Cooking with Linux, in which I impersonated a French chef in a French restaurant who serves wine up along with his helpings of open source software. And I continue that tradition, not necessarily in print every month, although I still do write for the Linux Journal every once in a while. But you know, just trying to have fun
with
the whole software thing.
Yep, and having fun with Linux, that's something that I guess people could definitely always learn about. They always think servers or what have you, overly technical. But hey, you come on the show to show that Linux is a lot of things. And yes, it is also about, being the backbone of the internet. Linux is also about having fun, just having a different operating system, and more so. So with that being said, before we get started with news, rumors, things like that, today's wine. You come on the show with a bottle of wine, and yeah.
I do. This one is really, really nice, and I'm actually this is the final little bit of it. This glass is all that remains of this bottle, and this is a Tomasi is the name of the winery here. There we go, Tomasi, and Tomasi is. This one's called Graticchio Appassionato. Forgive my Italian, any Italians that are out there. This is a 2016 red. It is lovely. This is a really, really nice wine I picked it up because it had some nice ratings on it, and I thought I would give it a shot anyway. But as it turns out, on first opening it was kind of like a little bit of a disappointment, and then I just sort of let it sit for about half an hour. This is one of those wines that literally... You know how they talk about some wines need to breathe? This is one of those wines. You give this thing about half an hour to breathe, and suddenly the thing just sort of explodes with flavor. It is absolutely wonderful. It's deep, rich red, nice and fruity flavors. If you have a chance, if you can find this thing at your local wine outlet, then check it out. This one is a winner. This one is really nice. Italy. It's actually from a place in Italy called Veneto. And Graticchio has something to do with, it sounds like it should be free, Graticchio. But Graticchio, I think, has something to do with the wooden slats, that they store the wine in or something like that. Yeah. I should really Google that up.
I think that, gratis is free, but Graticchio.
Gratis is free, yes.
And obviously for you, you don't always go for the $50, $60 bottles of wine. How much was this again at your place?
That one was here in Canada. That one was $15. It was $15. So it's not the cheapest wine that This is a nice, have it every once in a while.
Right. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and we have a glass of wine. We are all relaxed. We are letting it breathe, and let's get talking about news, rumors, conspiracy theories. Let's see. And I wanted to include one more that's not on your list. We will throw that in as well, but it has to do with Chrome. They made a big announcement yesterday, and it had to do and really the outrage that came from it. In one way or another, I wanted to address it today. So maybe at the end, we'll get to what Chrome announced yesterday. But let's start with yours. Let's start with your stuff.
Okay. My news. Actually, what I just wanted to, we finished up 2018, finished up 2019. Man, I am getting way ahead of myself here. We finished up 2018, and I was taking a look at some of the stories about, what we can expect in 2019. And of course, in 2018, and I'm not going to take these in order, by the way. You can take a look at them on the notes. But in 2018, we had things like Microsoft buying up GitHub. We had Red Hat being bought up by IBM. There were some big, heavy duty changes that happened in the open source marketplace. Linux is now, it's 2019, so it's been around for quite a long time, since 1991. And Linux Journal, which, like I said, I've written for extensively, and I still occasionally write for, is 25 years old this year. So yeah, so I think it's next month or something like that. Next month it turns 25 years old. So this is, so there have been an awful lot of changes happening in the Linux world out there. And I'm going to take a couple of things, which is, so 2018, I've got what happened in Linux in 2018. We had Linus Torvalds, who stepped away from Linux kernel development for a while because he, wanted to learn empathy, which apparently he managed to pull off in exactly 1 month. At which point, you got to admire that. A man who's going to go out there and change his entire, his entire personality in the course of a month. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, but then you realize he's just a workaholic, and he got bored of being bored.
He is. So the other thing that's kind of interesting, had to do with gaming, and this one is kind of interesting for me because I'm increasingly doing a few more gaming things. And in fact, in Linux Journal, I've been doing some gaming reviews and gaming columns, just trying to have a little bit more fun with this stuff. Anyway, but in terms of gaming, Steam added Steam had a huge update this last year, which meant that like literally thousands of Windows games that were only available for Windows in the Steam marketplace now run basically perfectly under Linux. So that was like a huge thing for anybody who's actually a Linux gamer. Now there are still Linux native games out there, which is important, obviously, in terms of high-end gaming and performance and so forth. But this just like opened up like a vast swath. So 2018 was actually a pretty cool year as far as Linux was concerned. Sorry, you look like you're going to say something there.
No, I completely agree that getting Steam has been for a while with their Steam boxes. They said that they were going to be Linux based. Steam and their CEO, who I'm completely forgetting the name of, Gabe Newell, there we go, has been a huge proponent of Linux. So to see them continue to push in that direction, because don't get me wrong, Linux community very vocal, and this is definitely a good thing. But there's a minority among gamers who actually use Linux, and it's because of this chicken egg thing. Why would you switch to Linux if there's nothing to play? But hey, to see Gabe Newell kind of pushing Steam to do this is very, very cool.
Yeah, and Steam, of course, has its own Linux distribution, as you know, namely Steam OS. So there is actually a Linux distribution made and maintained by Steam. So there we go. There's the logo floating up on the top of the screen there. I like that. But anyway, so I have actually been. I have to admit, even I've been playing a lot more games lately on Steam. Partly because of that. It's like, I don't pause and think, oh, is this one available? I don't do that now. It's just kind of like, oh, this looks interesting. I'm going to go and check it out. And so I've been doing that quite a bit more lately. And in fact, I can't tell you, this is like secret, but I'm actually reviewing a game that hasn't been released yet.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. So I can't say anything, like until next month or something like that. But I'm actually taking out a game right now, which is officially going to be released next week. But that's fun, so.
No, that's of course very, very interesting, and I'm trying to run through all the games that that I've heard about that, and I'm excited. So yeah, definitely let us know, and we definitely love to kind of help you spread the word of your word. But with so 2018 in this article, I mean, Linux. There was a lot of talk after the two big moves that you mentioned earlier about Microsoft purchasing GitHub, and then followed by Red Hat being purchased by IBM, and everyone said that was the death of IBM and whatever. But just the overall sense of the community, it seems like Linux is heading even more into the mainstream than ever before. Like, these are good moves, right? Who's upset? Is anyone upset?
No, I'm sure there are some purists out there that are upset at the idea that we seem to be crossing borders
right.
and sleeping with the enemy more and more or something. But I personally don't really see any negatives in that. Not okay. This is going to get funny, and when we do our topic of the day there, when we touch on our topic of the day, I'll sort of touch on why that's not always true. But for the most part, as far as the end user is concerned, I find it really hard to imagine any negatives for things like that happening. Now, just let's fast forward into the present. I've got a link there that talks about some things that are coming up for for Linux in 2019. You can take a look at that list, but I'm going to throw a couple of other ones out there. And one of them I'm going to start right off the bat, which has to do with Steam, believe it or not. Again, now it's not specifically a Steam thing, but one of the things that Steam did was they came up with they worked with Wine, which is a compatibility layer. In fact, Wine stands for Wine is not an emulator, so don't call it an emulator. But Wine has been around for years. I mean, it's been around for a long time, and it started out as basically a project to make it possible to run Windows applications under Linux, and it has done so with varying levels of success over the years. I mean, some things work better than others. Some things have always worked really well. Some things, just continue to improve little by little over time. And that's part of what Steam did. They took advantage of this compatibility there and did some of their own development and, and meshed it with their own engine to create this kind of support. But as of let me see, what's today? Today's the 24th. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 22nd, 2 days ago, Wine, if you go to winehq.org, and maybe I should throw this in the show notes as well. But if you go to winehq.org, there's that's the site where you can download the code for the Wine compatibility layer development stuff. And what's interesting is 2 days ago they released Wine 4.0, which is like a major update to it's a new stable release, which means it's not just bleeding edge development, which can but actual stable code that you can use. And, some of the things that they talk about 6,000 individual changes that were added to it. Direct 3D12 support, game controller support, high DPI support for Android. I'm not sure how important that is for those of us there, but as you can see, that also implies that then you can run Windows applications under Android as well, which is kind of interesting. So, So Wine has been taking a big leap forward, and that's been driven in part by not only just the Wine HQ developers, but some of the people over in Steam as well. So that is a really cool thing from the having fun with Linux side of things.
It always
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it always amazes me how the open source community can continue to make really drive this kind of innovation, and not even it's like they're doing something that no one else is doing. It's just that they're doing it for free. They're doing it for the community. They're doing it so that they can enjoy things on their own platform in their own way. Like you think that a group of people would be so disorganized that to really finagle something like Wine and to make 6,000 individual changes, to see these projects, I guess, kind of mature and get better instead of falling apart, because after the initial enthusiasm wanes, you think it would fall apart, but not the case.
Well, it's not the case partly because there's a usefulness for it. There's a demand for it, and like with so many and Wine has multiple projects as well. Like for instance, there's a project called Play on Linux, and Play on Linux is specifically tuned to the idea of playing games. And in fact, if you want to check that one out, since we're in the Play on Linux. What is the website address for Play on Linux? Playonlinux.com. PLAYONLINUX.com. Play on Linux has an installer, so it's got a little graphical installer. There's a bunch of common games and so forth. And what it does is it takes in consideration the kind of settings, like specific settings that have to be I don't know if inserted is the right word, but configured so that certain games work really, really well under the Wine, under Wine. And Play on Linux, like I said, is specifically sort of, focused on the gaming aspect of things as well. And of course, it takes advantage of the development that's happening over in the Wine community as well. In fact, if you were to install Play on Linux, one of the things that you'd see is that you can use the version that is distributed with Play on Linux, or you can also use the whatever version of the code that you want from Wine HQ. So you could take like the latest, the 4.0 code, and actually use it on Play on Linux as well.
I gotcha. So, yep, that's there, and I think you said you're going to throw a link in there in the show notes later. But so other things to expect from Linux in 2019.
Happen is right now KDE Plasma, my favorite desktop, and I can't. I'm throwing these things out, and I can't believe that I haven't actually thrown them all in the show notes. Let me get back to KDE Plasma in just a second here, and just throw out the idea that Linux kernel 5.0 is approaching very, very quickly, and that's going to be out before the end of the year. So that's a biggie. One of the other things, again, that's like I said, I wanted to sort of show you that I gave you an example of the articles, but not everything is in these articles. Yes, there's going to be big money made. Yes, GNOME is going to have a new GNOME shell type environment coming out. But KDE, KDE/Plasma, which you can find at kde.org, which is my favorite KDE environment, is also leading up to the release of a brand spanking new development branch. Now, the last one was, and again, we got another 5 coming here because it was KDE. No, actually, we were in KDE 5, we were in Plasma 5, now we're heading to Plasma 6. So there's some neat stuff coming on the horizon as well. And of course, basically what you're going to see there is the polish and the smoothness and the slickness of the desktops is just going to continue to accelerate and look better and better all the time. So I'm kind of excited about that one as well. I'm waiting to see that one. I'm waiting for Linux kernel 5, and but I'm also waiting for the new version of Plasma, which is going to be coming out as well. So it's going to be a cool year as far as Linux is concerned.
Very, very cool. And hey, I think this biggest one here, the Linux kernel 5.0, if it does everything that they're promising, obviously just kind of reading from the article here, but you know, those big number increases from 4 to 5 or 4 point whatever it was to 5, hey, that's a big milestone. So cool to see. So with and with that, you also have the Linux philosophy in 2019. This is something that you also talk about often, and yeah, and it would not be a Linux show if we don't hear the phrase "free as in speech" and not "free as in beer."
Yeah.
Talk about the Linux philosophy and whether, I guess, new Linux converts are really care that much about it, because I can imagine that as Linux kind of picks up steam. There we go. As Linux kind of picks up steam, more and more people are just going to use it because it's a good operating system. They really don't care about open source.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and in fact, on the last show, you and I talked about the idea that millennials don't care when it comes to open source. But what bugged me about this article, and the reason that I've got it there, and the reason that I said I'm going to use it as a jumping off point is, they brought up the idea of the Linux philosophy. Is it still relevant? This is what the article is called, and I'm not typically one to rag on somebody else's articles. But I'm ragging on the question more than anything else here, because the philosophy that the article talks about is the philosophy of the way that a system is organized and that system services are set up and used and so forth, how commands are used, command structure, all these sorts of things. That's the philosophy that's being discussed there. And that bugged me. Like, it bugged me when I read this article, because it's like, oh, come on. Like, we're talking like, the difference between init.d and systemd, for starting and stopping services, and whether commands should be multifunction or single function, that sort of thing. That's not, to me, that's a design philosophy, but it doesn't have anything to do with what I would think of as an open source philosophy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I went looking for something which was basically, something that would continue the conversation, so to speak, between what we talked about last month, as in, does anybody care about this? And I went to this article thinking, so the conversation is starting. Maybe I should start it. So the conversation is starting. Somebody else is asking the question. And that wasn't the question at all. It was a completely different question. So, and what was the question that he was kind of asking? I mean, he was asking, from his perspective, it was a design philosophy, in the way that commands and services are defined. Nothing about whether software should be free, the free as in speech, free as in beer, all that sort of stuff. Nothing about, licenses, nothing about whether open source development philosophies and ideologies, as in, creating a level playing field for people to develop software and build businesses and so forth, whether any of that is important. That's not at all what it was about. It was just about, a design philosophy, like specifically, should these things be in these places and that sort of thing. No! I don't care about that.
So essentially he was getting at with really, as it pertains to Linux, he was, to kind of an analogy for Windows would be, should the home button be in the bottom left corner for Windows 8?
Yeah.
Instead of your overarching societal question.
Exactly. And frankly, this is one of those things that sort of, as time goes on, I feel like, like Linux is now let me see, what's the expression from, this is, from before your time here, but the expression, what is it? The ruling bodies, whatever the expression was, it's like the people who actually run things and so forth. You don't want to be part of that group. The establishment, that's what it is. The establishment, that was the word. So Linux is now the establishment. Linux is now basically what runs everything in the world, what runs all the big businesses. And in fact, these mega conglomerates like Google and Facebook and so forth, who basically know and own everything about us, all use open source software to do their stuff. Everything they do runs on Linux and open source software. And the philosophy of it, the open philosophy, the fact that the end user is important above all things, that's the philosophy that I'm talking about, is something they don't care at all about.
Yeah, and it's obviously a majorly important, kind of topic that comes up here often, because we've seen what happens when companies such as Google or whatever, like one of my favorite examples of that is, and actually one of our listeners brought it to my attention. Google Maps. Anyone out there can tie Google Maps. They have an API and tie Google Maps into their system, and they actually had a someone who was scouting using Google Map and market value and things like that. And essentially, they came to them with a picture of their house and said, "Hey, is your house for sale?" Even though they never put it on a market, never anything like that. And to make themselves look more professional, because getting a satellite into space and taking a picture of your house isn't easy, but anyone could use that data that Google has generated and utilize it for their own purposes. And I know that there's some stuff behind the scenes, but allowing people to integrate their own services in with that has helped a lot of people. I mean, Zillow itself wouldn't exist without Google Maps. It's very interesting, I guess, when you allow people to integrate more tightly with your own personal projects, I guess.
Well, and of course, there's the whole notion that everything that you do on these platforms effectively belongs to those platforms, and you become like basically, part of the engine. You become one of those little tiny cogs that runs the big artificial intelligence engine out there that collects informations like, where do you shop? Where do you go? Who did you talk to today? How long were you talking to those people? All the bits and all the applications that you've got on your phone or on your tablet or on your computer. How long were you using them? How much time did you spend on the screen? How long did you hover with the mouse button over a particular link before you actually clicked it? All this sort of stuff, that's being collected. And, and I think I said last time or the time before we were talking, I don't think people really give a damn much about that. And that's part of what bothers me is I don't think people care. I think people have forgotten that that they as individuals not only have a stake in this, but some of the advantages that comes from all this open stuff should be theirs. It shouldn't just be in the hands of people that, have figured out a way to make vast amounts of money at it.
Right. And absolutely. So with that being said, I think when we come back to break, because we're about to head off into break here in just a minute, but I wanted, and this actually ties in pretty closely with that last topic, and it may not be strictly Linux news, but with Google, they are changing some stuff with their API, and there is a lot of sensationalism going around that Google Chrome is going to block all ad blockers with the next release of Chrome. So again, kind of open source, being able to tie into code and letting third-party extensions do their thing, letting people have control over their browsing experience. That has been sensationalized that we're going to lose that here in the next patch. But anyways, with that being said, everyone, music right there. When we, actually, Marcel, if you could mute that just real quick. And, yep, there we go. Perfect. Yep, there we go. So everyone, when we come back, Marcel Gagne, more Linux, more Computer America, and we are going to do that topic, and then we'll move on to today's topic of the day. I know, half the show gone, and we're about to get into today's topic. Everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America right after this. Stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And and everyone, welcome back into the program. And I think we are going to go ahead and we're going to... Oh, if you missed any part of today's show, check out the podcast, today's show in its entirety. And there you go. So just punch in Computer America, it'll pop right up. Or we have a new streaming audio podcast page. Check that out, computeramerica.com. Okay, now, Marcel continues on, cooking with Linux, and of course, our resident Linux expert. And this is actually something I wanted to start talking about because this was happening after the show. It really, all the news organizations started to pick it up. And it's like when you talk about a sensationalized story, this is one of those things. And if you haven't heard, the gist of it is that Chrome, you know them, they're the most popular browser out there. They are changing their API so that the way that a lot of ad blockers work, they kind of sit between the browser and the user, and they block big elements that pop up on the screen. So if it's a banner ad, if it's a pop-up ad, if it's any of these kinds of things, the ad blocker will come in and say, no, I know that kind of content. I know that URL. It's not going to come through. And so the user just sees the content without all the ads. Pretty common practice. Anyways, Chrome, they're changing their API, that lets the extensions sit between the user and the browser. They're taking that out, or they're changing it completely. Let's see, and they had a new one that they're going to put in, where essentially this is the way that other programs have worked before. It's just now they're kind of making it official. Like this was kind of like their experimental way of integrating extensions, and they're going from the old way, which has worked for the past 10 years, and they're trying something new. A good analogy would be when Apple kind of said, hey, we are dropping Rosetta Stone, I think was, kind of the thing that they had, because they said, hey, we have something better. This is going to stop a lot of programs from working, but progress is progress. And that is kind of where Chrome is coming into the picture. So I thought, first of all, again, I just wanted to get the story out because this is still, a hot topic of debate, when I really don't think it is, because they're not saying that that on Chrome extensions are not allowed. They're not saying that ad blockers are not allowed. What they're doing is that they're saying the way that ad blockers used to work no longer works. And by the way, Apple Safari works the same way that Chrome is about to work. So there you go. And there are ad blockers for Apple Safari. So anyways, they're moving away from JavaScript. This is the death of JavaScript, and kind of along with that. And Marcel right there shaking his head. I'm not sure why, but
Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Actually, no. But I was going to suggest something, and let's do some troubleshooting live on the air here. Is there a way to have your headphones in your ear and your microphone in your computer? Because I think that would stop a lot of the echo that I'm hearing. Oh, and just hung up the phone. How rude. So we're going to get him back on here in just a second. Let's see. By the way, this call facilitated by Skype. There you go.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Hi, can you hear me? Oh, hi.
Okay.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. I just can't see you now.
Yep. Definitely share the screen, but I gotta say, Marcel, that's perfect. I think, I think it was just like the sound coming from your computer, picking up by your own microphone, and blah blah blah. But with headphones, this works well.
All right. So long as we've got this working fine, and I apologize to everybody out there for this. Someday we will discover a way to communicate online using both video and audio that works perfectly. And for some strange reason, at the beginning of 2019, we still haven't got it. I don't know what it is.
And I don't think the calendar is going to solve it, but this is working very, very well. And as I said before, Marcel, you were kind of shaking your head about the depth of JavaScript. I'm not sure what.
No. I mean, JavaScript is not dead. That's not. I don't think it's dead. First
They're
of all,
trying to phase it out.
HTML5 is built on JavaScript, and HTML5 is kind of like the way the interactive web is built nowadays. So I don't think we need to toll the bells for JavaScript just yet.
Right. No, absolutely. And HTML5 is the thing that is supposed to replace JavaScript. It's just so much of the internet was built and continues to run on JavaScript. It's going to be a long process, and we're at the beginning stages of that.
It is, but we've been through this before, and we were through this before with Microsoft ActiveX. Remember ActiveX from the before time?
Of course.
This was like a bad idea right from the beginning, and it took a long time, but eventually ActiveX disappeared, and it's gone forever now. It's like most people don't even remember that it ever existed. But the big change in Chrome, to me, is not that. The whole bit with the ad blockers works like this. Chrome, extensions still exist and continue to exist and so forth, but what most of the ad blocker sites did, and sites like that did, is they used remote code. So the extension, the Chrome extension, would actually load the latest and greatest code from a remote site.
Right.
Which of course brings all sorts of security issues along, as baggage along with it. So it's not just that, it's not, hey, we're blocking ad blockers. We're blocking ad blockers, that have only a small chunk of code sitting in the browser that load the rest of the stuff remotely, over which there's no control from 1 minute to the next. And yes, it is a huge hole. So it's not a question of ad blockers. Now, I have my own beefs with ad blockers. I actually do. But it has nothing to do with that. And I think that this whole, one of the problems, of course, is that one of the big, there are millions of people that are using some of these ad blockers, right? AdBlock Plus, for instance, like millions of people use this thing. And so it is going to be a massive inconvenience for those people. There's no question.
So yeah, it's a bit of an inconvenience, but they did reach out to Google, and Google was very quick to come out and say that yes, our changes break these extensions, but our purpose for doing this was not to disallow ad blocking by any means. It's just something that happened, and because this is this is their next patch, they are giving these extension creators time to tweak their extensions so that they continue to work. It's not that, hey, they will never work again. Google just said, hey, the way they used to work won't work again. It won't work now. But if they want to change it to work, then that's completely their prerogative. It's not Google's intention to block these things forever. Although it is Google's intention, and they said that Chrome was going to ad block by default.
And that's nothing new. I mean, Chrome ad blocking by default was supposed to start like February of last year, I think it was, wasn't it? It was like, it was around this time last year, maybe a little later.
And it did. It actually did go through. But the only thing that Chrome did, and this is something that I think is actually good, because I'm sure your beef with ad blockers is, having to do with supporting content creators and things like that. But I will say that blocking intrusive ads was Google's goal. Google's goal was never to block all ads. It was about, those full page unskippable video ads that you get. That's what Google's going for. And I think people need to realize that ads are here to stay. It's just, if ads weren't intrusive, are they really a bad thing?
Well, no. And in fact, I mean, like for instance, I mean, I have no trouble with seeing ads on the side of a page when I'm taking a look at it. But when I go to a site and they start playing an ad full volume in a little window on the side, it's like, damn you. And I mean, one of the places that the CNET, for instance, is an example. And I'm not talking specifically ads, but it's one of those sites that you visit, you go to read an article there, and all of a sudden a little video pops up and starts playing in the corner. Just stop that.
Every article, I know what you're talking about, CNET. If you're listening, every article does not need its own announcer and a person to read it to you.
And if I wanted to play that, like, just if you've got a video that goes along with it, put it like a YouTube video with a play button, and I will listen to it. I will watch it if I want to. Otherwise, you're just annoying the hell out of me.
So one thing that I've started doing, and this is only with Chrome, maybe with Firefox, but Chrome has allowed you to do this for a couple of months now. If you right-click a tab in Chrome, you can actually mute the entire site. So regardless of what, kind of web page you open on CNET, for instance, it would mute every single web page on CNET. So Chrome is adding ways to kind of, lessen the experience or improve the user experience. And I think that's really the goal of a lot of these ad blockers, is to improve user experience. If things are not working, if things are intrusive and just being annoying, they should have lashback. They should not, they should not earn money for annoying me. I'm with you. Like, oh man, we could do an entire show on this. But seriously, CNET. I mean, I like CNET because it's a tech news site. Okay, and I've got a couple of good friends who write for CNET, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to mention you at the moment because I don't want to roll you in with CNET when I'm ragging on them. But damn it, like, I have just opened up a page just for fun here about Jeff Bezos and his upcoming divorce. Okay, I just opened it up. It pops open a video that's playing at full volume. Just shut up. Like, come on, CNET. What the hell is wrong with you? Anyway, like I said, we could do a whole show on this, and I could just rag on about CNET like for the entire show. It just Right. But we should not squander our precious minutes that we have here with on our Linux show. Hey, if you want to come back and kind of do this on another day, we could do that. But I will say, there we go. News, rumors, conspiracy theories. I think that, honestly, the Chrome blocking all ad blockers is a conspiracy theory. I've seen a lot of people incorrectly say that that's what Google's doing. It's not. It's not at all. But I will say that a lot of online communities have said, this is it. This is the final straw. I'm going back to Mozilla. So Mozilla, if you get some increased downloads, congratulations. More the merrier. So there you go. Yeah. So
it is. You're absolutely right. It's a conspiracy theory. Yes, it affects the ad blockers, but it's not about the ad blockers.
Right. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and move on to today's featured topic? And so let's go ahead and actually, yes. And as you mentioned, I'm a little lost. So I'm editing my profile details. I need to add a picture, but I am so lost trying to navigate this kind of social, this UTech Meet that you sent me to. But hey, why don't we go into this and I'll work on this while we introduce it.
Yeah, let's do this. this is not new news, but as of August this year, Google Plus ceases to be. And you can joke all you want about the idea that, well, nobody uses Google Plus. But the fact is,
upped that to March.
There's like about 80 million people that use it on a regular basis. That's not small time.
I think that they upped that to March, by the way, because like the latest security flaw that they found, they actually said, all right, we're increasing the speed up of the shutdown to March, I think. So.
Oh, okay. All right. So, but it's insane. I mean, like, if you want a conspiracy theory, this is my conspiracy theory on this one. It has nothing to do with the security flaws they found out, because, I mean, all you have to do is take a look at, you have to take a look at companies that have been hacked or that have had a security breach of some kind or another. You might as well put together a list of companies that haven't had a security breach, because it's going to be shorter. That's not the reason they're closing Google Plus. They're closing Google Plus because it's not a big money maker, and they're not interested in continuing to maintain it. The end. And they're not, and they don't want to make it sound like, oh, Google is abandoning yet another project, which of course they do on a regular basis, right? I mean, Google is a company that, let's throw a whole pile of crap against the wall, see if it sticks, and if it doesn't, we'll just close it down. Well, people are starting to get tired of that crap. It's like, well, look, every time you start something and you don't like the way it's going, you shut it down on us. Right? So I think the reason they're closing Google Plus, it has, like I said, has nothing to do with security. It has everything to do with the fact that we want to look like we're closing this down because we're good guys, as opposed to people that just don't want to maintain a social network anymore.
All right, so that's the conspiracy theory. We could spend a whole day on that, but yeah, it looks like you found an alternative.
Well, okay, there are several alternatives. And a few years ago, I'm talking like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there was a big thing about, people were pissed off at Facebook for whatever reason it was at the time. I don't remember. But they were upset about it at the time. And then somebody started a Kickstarter or something like that to create an alternative to Facebook. And they got like whacked the dough to create this new social network. And as it turns out, they actually did create such a thing. It's called Diaspora. And Diaspora was billed as, a Facebook killer. And, we could do an entire show on using the killer at the end of the same thing, an iPhone killer, a BlackBerry killer, a Windows killer, a this killer, a that killer. Just shut up about it. Anyway. You're pushing so many of my buttons today. What the heck is wrong?
I have heard a lot of just playing video games, like everything's like a WoW killer, like a World of Warcraft killer, and it turns out things just kind of stick around, and if anything's going to be a killer, it's going to be itself. Like BlackBerry's going to take BlackBerry out for lack of innovation. But I digress.
But you never hear this happening in anything else. It's not like anybody says, we've created a new loaf of bread, and this is going to be the Wonder Bread killer. Like, nobody says that in any place other than freaking technology.
Avocado toast is the toast killer. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, this wine today, this is going to be the champagne killer. I tell you, after this, nobody's ever going to drink champagne again.
I gotcha.
Anyway, so they came up with this thing called Diaspora. And Diaspora, to this day, so 4 years later, after it was billed as the Facebook killer, has about 180,000 active users. Okay, and that may not seem like much, but if you have a group of people who hang out and chat with each other on a regular basis, and there are like 300-400 of you, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. It's a community. It's a vibrant community that works with itself, that communicates, that exchanges information, and so forth. Let me see. Neighborhood political associations, like for your party. I'm not talking about national or even statewide parties, or in my case, provincial parties, but I'm talking about just, your neighborhood association. Those things are sometimes, a few dozen people who get together on a regular basis. You don't have to have, a fifth of the entire planet on your network for it to be valuable. Okay. You can still have a lot of people who are interested in a particular thing or a particular technology. And let me just take a little side trip here for a second and talk about Reddit. Okay, sure. Reddit has the best and the worst of everything the internet can offer on it. If you've spent any time on Reddit, you know what I'm talking about. But Reddit also has what's called subreddits. There are communities for, like, think of something, and there's probably a subreddit for it. There probably is. There are so many subreddit communities. It's amazing. And some of them will have like, you know, a few dozen people or a couple of hundred people, but they're active, vibrant communities that have been going on for a long, long time. And they continue to go on just because you don't need to have the entire world, you know, for people to get together and be interested about a particular thing. Am I right or am I right?
I am an active user on Reddit. But at the same, well, I say active user. I open the app and I read the first 20 stories, and then I close the app for about 3 hours, and then I wait for it to change stories again. It's a great way to waste time, but
don't you subscribe to subreddits in there?
I have a few, and honestly, like. You can't tell this because the camera only does my shoulders and head, but I have a few, you know, kind of dieting ones and things like that. They're very supportive of each other. You know, they have a common goal. They all want to lose weight, and they all support each other and give tips and successes. And it's, you're right. There's the best of the community. And then if people want to be vitriolic or they want to, you know, kind of bandwagon, there's the worst of the internet all in the same place. You're right. It's a unique
I love
place.
it for that. I do. I love it for that reason. I'm kind of a strange Canadian, I suppose, in the sense that in some ways I skate very close to being a free speech absolutist. I think that that jerks and idiots and slime buckets should be able to show themselves as idiots and slime buckets and jerks, you know, so that we all know who they are. I actually think that that's more useful than, you know, just closing the show down. And in some ways, that's kind of what Reddit is. Reddit has like some really, really great people, and they have some complete Am I allowed to swear on the show?
Not really, but understand. Yeah, no, they're.
You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. But so there's a little bit of everything out there. But right. The fact is, you can, if you want to get away from all that, if you do have a community and you want to gather your community, whatever it happens to be. Maybe it's the local, you know, maybe it's a model train builders club or something like that. And you don't want to give basically your soul to Facebook or have to worry about the fact that, Google Plus is going to close down in March or something like this. There are alternatives. One of them is Diaspora. Diaspora, the reason I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it at the moment, Diaspora and Friendica, FRIEND.ca, the one that you're having a little bit of trouble registering on at the moment.
I registered, changed my profile picture, and added you as a friend. I'm figuring it out.
Oh, okay, cool. Anyway, the reason that things like that are interesting is it is possible to create your own community and your own community server along with the same sorts of features that a Facebook offers without basically giving it all to Facebook, okay? I'm not talking about building a website with a forum or something like that. I'm talking about creating the same sorts of things that you see in something like Facebook. In other words, like a news stream, a way to chat with people, a way to send not only private messages, but messages to your entire group, having similar interests that join you together, or for that matter, building a larger community if that's the sort of thing that you want to do. There are a bunch of them. There's GNU Social out there. There's, like I said, Diaspora. And there's the one that I'm trying to get you to have a try with at the moment, which is I created the server at utechme.com or .com. That's just the letter utechme.com. And if people want to try this out, they are free to go ahead and try it. What I did was I created a domain. This isn't even this is like its own little virtual machine, basically server out there on the internet. Costs next to nothing to operate. And now I've got basically my own social network out there.
Yeah, and so anything I submit, I mean, talk about, because with Facebook, the reason that Facebook is getting a lot of blowback has to do with the fact that, hey, they collect, scavenge, and beg for more information from you, and they will never give it up. That is their business model. They love to do it. For this, I mean, this is obviously, they say they're the decentralized, kind of social media network. And I guess with you creating this, what do I give you? When I made this account, I uploaded a photo, I started doing status updates. What do I give you or Friendica for doing this? Absolutely nothing.
What you're doing is you're creating your own little private environment. You can add me as a friend or not, or add other people as friends or not. Nobody is asking you to do anything like that. The reason that sites like this are interesting is they're what we call federated. Federated means that you don't have to be on one big central network like Facebook or something like that. If somebody is on a Friendica network or a diaspora network, but like I said, I'm using Friendica here as the example. If somebody is on a Friendica network, they can communicate and connect to somebody on a different Friendica server somewhere out there in the big wide world. They don't have to be in the same place. That's kind of what federated means. It means I am able to communicate with and share information with other servers without being part of that same server or server pool in the way that you do with, Google or Facebook for that matter. So that way, if there is something that ties you together as a group and you want to set up a server like this and you don't want to have to sell your soul to Facebook, you're not losing anything if somebody else somewhere else sets up a server and you want to communicate with just one person on that other server. You are able to do that by virtue of the fact that these pods or these individual servers are actually able to communicate together through this federation system.
No, makes perfect sense. And for some reason, I never really knew what federation meant. So, wow, that was a gap in my knowledge.
Thank you. Federated. We can communicate with each other.
Federated. Really there you go. Yeah, and so obviously it's right there, and I do think that's cool because obviously if you have friends who maybe if you're more interested in only Linux gaming, then you can have a group that's dedicated to Linux gaming. But at the same time, if you want Linux updates, then you start sharing information with like let's say Linux, and you'll never get those. I don't know. Did you see who was on Big Brother last week or reality TV that you get on Facebook?
No, I didn't.
So me either. But there you go. This is very, very cool. Obviously, you have a lot of updates there, and obviously, thing about social media is that the more people, kind of the better it is. But to an extent, 2 billion people, get a little unwieldy. But,
you don't need to have everybody in the entire world. What you want is your group of people, not every conceivable group of people imaginable. And of course, if, again, like I said, if there's somebody that's important to a friend of yours that you don't know, they can be brought into the fold, even if they're on a different server by using the federation system. And I think it's a spectacular idea. I think it's relatively easy to set up. And like I said, running a server is not an expensive thing to do if you wanted to do something like this. Like for instance, using a cheap virtual machine on something like a Linode, for example, or something like that. For $100 a year, you could have like your own dedicated server running your own social network, which can communicate with other networks like this, but is specifically dedicated to your group, whatever your group happens to be. Like, for instance, Computer America. Let's use Computer America as an example. There's no reason we couldn't create a Computer America social network so that people who are interested in what's happening with the show and who want to communicate with other people that are interested with what's happening with the show could be on the same network without having to be on Facebook. Okay. So you could have, the Computer America, you could call it, friendica.computeramerica.com, for instance, just to use, just to throw something out there.
Well, and for now, I think we're going to piggyback on utechme.com and we're going to see what happens. Just made our first post, made it there. Hopefully it sends it to my email if any updates or anything happens. But I think with that said, we have like 4 more minutes, Marcel. And honestly, I'm going to kind of say it this way. We are probably, and if you don't mind, we're probably going to go into the distribution. We're going to let you speak your mind on the distribution. We're not going to try to squeeze this into 3 minutes. And anything that won't be heard on the radio today, you can listen to it on the podcast or, of course, on the video archive. So, Marcel, I want you to not feel rushed if as long as time is not a factor for you. And but I do want to switch gears to today's distribution focus. So, if you don't mind.
All right. Well, in that case, then, hey, for anybody who is leaving because you're just listening to us on the radio, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
I'm happy you're out there.
Absolutely. But for everyone else out there who, and this is something that we wanted to try for a little while now, was that if things do go long, normally we kind of cut them off, but hey, why not let them run long, and why not let things continue on in the podcast? So There you go. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and continue on? So distribution focus, distribution, different, I guess, environments for a desktop or different desktop environments, and they can be customized, as we've said on the show before, for look, feature set, usability. Low. Let's say something that's like very simple to run on old hardware, or something very feature rich. Distributions can be anything you want. Your imagination is the answer. So with that being said, you have a new one today.
Sounds an awful lot like what we were just talking about, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
You don't have to be running what everybody else is running. You can run something that works for you. Well, the distribution today, the reason I picked this one specifically is I've directed you to the site distrowatch.com in the past. I know I have.
Yeah.
Which is, and the reason that site is, for me, it's a love-hate relationship with this site. I like going to it because I like to see what the news is, what new distributions exist, what people are talking about, that sort of thing. What I don't like about it is on the side there, they have the page hit ranking for the last 6 months.
I won't lie. As soon as I open it up, that's about the first place I go. Just because, hey, numbers, it's awesome.
Yeah, but the numbers don't mean anything.
I know. It's a popularity contest.
All it is what are people looking at right now? It has nothing to do with popularity. It has nothing to do with how many people have this particular distribution installed. It just has to do with whether people are curious enough to click the link for the page. That's it. Very,
very true. So, yeah, and
you could game this if you wanted fairly easily, which, of course, is another problem that I have with it. But that doesn't change the fact that DistroWatch is useful and does have some interesting things there. So anyway, I saw this distribution there that is climbing up the ranks like stink, man. And it's like the second from the top at the moment. And 2 months ago, I'd never heard of this thing. It wasn't anywhere to be seen. Okay, but there it is. All of a sudden, magically, MX Linux 2643 hits per day. Apparently, it's like right near the top. It's like, oh man, I got to check this out. A distribution I've never heard of, which is somehow massively, insanely popular all of a sudden. Let's see what it's got going for it. So for people who want to check it out themselves, of course, MX Linux, I've got the link in the show notes. MX Linux is mxlinux.org, MX as in the two letters, linux.org. And you can download the latest distribution from there. As I said in the show notes, I was in Dune mode when I wrote this. I finished reading the 8th Dune book. So I'm still totally tied into the Dune universe here. But it's like, oh, and by the way, there's a remake of Dune. Villeneuve is making a new version of Dune. It's supposed to be coming out, I think, 2020. So not this summer, but next summer. So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be fascinating. So 3 Great Houses is where I started this out. And the first great house is Debian, of course. That would be like the emperor. And I'll leave everyone to figure out whether Antics or Mepis is House Harkonnen or House Atreides. For those of you out there that are Dune fans and know what I'm talking about. So one of, I don't know which one is evil and which one isn't, but it doesn't really matter. The fact is there are 2 big distributions out there that have been, fairly popular in the past, Antics and Mepis, and you've got developers from both that decided to get together and create this new distribution called MX Linux.
So
are you still there? Have you lost it?
No. So Mepis, Anti-X, and there go MX. So the 2 crammed together. And what is? And I'm sorry for just being kind of oblivious here, but why do? I guess I don't want to say rivals because open source, but why do 2 people who kind of create their own things? Why do they bother working together like this?
Well, I mean, sometimes it could be something as simple as, hey, we keep borrowing from the same pot, as in, we have similar development philosophies, and now I'm using philosophy in the way that article that I was ragging on about had. But we have similar development philosophies. We wind up picking similar bits of software. Wouldn't it be a lot easier if we just got together, given that we are communities of developers as opposed to, a big company with lots of money on their hands?
True.
And see if we can't put something together that reflects both our common philosophies, but, can benefit from what both of us bring to the table. So, I mean, it can be as simple as that. And I mean, I've seen that happen more than once. So this is, this wouldn't be the first time that something like this that occurred in the open source world. MX Linux, I downloaded and installed. And believe it or not, I didn't actually find out about it originally from DistroWatch, or I wasn't paying enough attention to notice it there. But I had a friend who was upset with the direction of the distribution that he was using. And he said, I'm distro hopping again, which is something, as you know, I do like 3 or 4 times a year. But he said, I'm distro hopping. And he told me about this one. And it's like, I can't believe I haven't heard of this one. So there we go. So that's how I wind up at MX Linux. I downloaded it. I installed it. I've been playing with it. And it's got a lot going for it, actually, I have to admit. But it also has some negatives. Let me start with a lot going for it. First of all, it uses XFCE, which is, frankly, a very simple desktop environment. And for people who are coming from the Windows world, specifically things like, Windows 7 and Vista and stuff like that, like from that age, are going to find this like really, comfortable and easy and friendly and so forth, despite the fact that the panel, which is, at the bottom in a Windows system, by default shows up on the left-hand side. So it's a vertical panel on the left-hand side, but you can change that fairly easily.
Right.
There's a tool that lets you decide the way that you want, things to be organized, or you want things to look on the desktop. But they started off over, like I said, on the left-hand side vertically. But it is, like I said, it's a very Windowsy type panel in the way that it's set up. So it's kind of friendly that way. Because it uses XFCE, it's also not burdened with the resource demand that, what's my favorite KDE Plasma, for instance, is a big, hungry desktop. I mean, it looks freaking gorgeous, but you pay for that freaking gorgeousness, right?
Right.
And GNOME, not so much GNOME 2, which I'm not a big fan of, but like GNOME 3, which has the flashy sort of, fold out panels and things like this. I'm not saying it right at the moment. But has what I think is a very slick looking desktop as well. Also, it's fairly demanding in terms of system resources. Whereas XFCE can run like on, I hate to use the term old hardware, but I mean, there's still PCs out there with like, a gig of RAM or a couple of gig of RAM as opposed to, 12 gig. Right. Or that are using non-accelerated graphics cards and so forth. So it is a really good distribution for that. And it's got some nice tools that are pre-built in. It tends to focus a lot on free software, but it also has something on it. Let me just go and see exactly how they word that there. How do they word it? Codex installer. So they have something that's called MX Tools, which is this batch of things on the desktop to let you do things simply and easily with the system. For instance, you can create a live USB on a USB key or whatever, so that you can take your distribution with you and run it off any computer. So any modifications that you can make, you can take with you. It's already on the key. So that's kind of cool. But it also has things like a menu editor to change the look and feel of the menu. There's a codex installer if you're not happy with the fact that it only includes open source codecs like Obsorbus or something like that. You can install those proprietary codecs with just a click. That's built on it. There's something called Conky, which comes with it on a desktop, which is one of those lovely little resource monitors that that are just on by default on your desktop. It's a nice, clean, fast, low resource distribution that will do the job for a heck of a lot of people. And I kind of liked it. I found myself liking it more and more as I was using it, frankly, a lot more than I thought I would. Now, here comes the downside. Okay.
All right.
As I said, it tends to focus on the idea of, it tends to focus on XFCE as the desktop environment. So being a KDE aficionado, I went looking for it, and it's not in the repository by default. So it's just not there. So if for some strange reason I decided, I'd rather have the KDE desktop, it's not there. I'm not saying that you couldn't connect to other repositories, because you can, but it's just not there.
Okay, and obviously this is the point of different distributions, is that you go looking for something, and I guess the hallmark of a really good distribution is that it will have everything already kind of at your fingertips, ready to go if you need it, and you don't have to go hunting for it. So I guess it sounds picky, but that's the point of this.
But that is the point. And, and I don't actually have any objections to that, because for most people, okay, and I do mean like the vast majority of people, even if we're talking Linux, like I obviously love Linux and open source, and I think this is the way to go, and I think that's what you should be using. And I've got a bucket full of reasons why that's the case. But for somebody like me who sort of lives on the bleeding edge of this stuff and is always playing with different distributions, it almost really doesn't matter, because I'm going to take what you give me. I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to say, oh, this is cool. I like what you're doing here. I think this is interesting. This is novel, whatever. This is an interesting selection of default tools, that you're putting at my disposal, so that, as you say, I can just start using it without having to go shopping for a million different things. I've got my word processor and my browser and something to play videos and listen to music and stuff like all that stuff is already in there, right?
Right.
But somebody like me is going to say, yeah, but I also have this and this and this and this and this and all these other things that I use on a regular basis. I'm just going to go out and get all this now. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'm going to retheme my desktop to look this way because I like it to look this way. Oh, and I don't like your wallpaper, so I'm going to change this thing. Oh, and by the way, I happen to like the KDE environment instead of XFCE. So I got to go and install that as well. So in the end, I wind up with a distribution that basically looks like every other distribution.
You are going, and I guess until the day that you come out with your own distribution, you're going to be tweaking things. I guess pulling together a patchwork of a bunch of different distributions until you are happy. So, no.
Yeah, but I mean, I have to admit, I do like seeing what people are doing. I like to look at these different, design philosophies and default sets of tools and things like this. But in the end, I always make it what I want it to be anyway. But that's not everybody. And in fact, I dare say that's not the majority of people. Most people, it's like, give me something that's well organized and well set up that lets me do what I want to do. And maybe I'll install one or two additional packages, but probably not.
So with MX Linux, you think that who do you think would be best suited for this? Like, just download it. Maybe, like you said, you don't like older hardware, but someone who's looking for something lightweight, fast, zippy, well organized. I mean, who would like this?
Oh, I think honestly, anybody who comes specifically, like if they're not if they didn't come into the Windows world, for instance, with Windows 10. Okay, so if they long for the good old days of Windows 7 and Windows Vista, and the classic Windows setup, I think they'd love this. I think they would. It comes with LibreOffice, for instance, so you have like a full Office suite, including if you'll pardon the expression, the equivalent of Word and Excel and stuff like that. You have all that. There's the Impress presentation suite, Calc spreadsheet, and Writer document management stuff. It has Firefox already built in, so you have your web browser all set to go. In terms of Office tools, it's like it comes with an ebook reader, for looking stuff on the internet. There's the PDF viewer and editor that's included in it. There's aside from the web browser, there's Thunderbird for email. There's a BitTorrent client. It comes with the transmission BitTorrent client. It's got something for chatting on IRC. It's got a bunch of graphics applications, including LibreOffice's draws in there. But it also has the GIMP installed, which is, if you'll pardon the expression, the open source equivalent of Photoshop.
Yeah.
It's got, if I take a look at it here, it's got like a dozen games, actually a little over half a dozen games that are included in it. There's, it's a full-featured distribution that's based on Debian stable. So, and you can take that word to heart, by the way, stable. It's going to be a good, stable distribution that's supported for a decent long period of time.
There you go. And yeah, and just reading about us, and yeah, I guess this seems like a good collaboration because you mentioned the two organizations from before, and MEPIS, they said that they're on indefinite hold. So I guess all those guys got bored and they decided, hey, why don't we make something like this? So Dolphin Oracle, if you're listening, good job.
I think it's beautiful. I like what they've done. I'm impressed with what they've done. Like I said, I would immediately go out there and install. I'd find the repositories for KDE and install it. So I kind of blow the whole system out of the water. But I think they've done excellent work. I'm relatively impressed. So.
There you go.
Maybe those numbers on DistroWatch aren't completely off the mark. So,
well, hey, and with that being said, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up there. Let's play the music lightly in the background, and yeah, Marcel, we'll let you wrap up. If people want to find more about you, your musings, and what you have to talk about, best place to go.
Well, the best place to go, there are a couple of places, but you can find me on Twitter, WFTL. WFTL is writer and free thinker at large. Oddly enough, on YouTube, I'm Freethinker at Large, so youtube.com/freethinker at large. And finally, cookingwithlinux.com if you want to just check out my Linux-flavored stuff. And I'm all over the place. Just look for Marcel Gagne Space Linux, and you'll find me, I guarantee it.
There you go. And everyone, we'll have a link to that in the show notes and anywhere else that we put this. Marcel, as always, thank you for coming on. Sorry we had to kind of bump you, but thank you for being amenable. And yeah, we look forward to next month.
All right. Good chatting with you, my friend.
Good chatting with you. So everyone else out there, thank you for joining us here on Computer America. If you happen to listen all the way through to the end of the podcast version, everyone on radio should be gone by now. But hey, you guys are the true devouts, and you will be receiving a present. Don't worry about your address. We already have it because, yeah, we spy on you. So with that being said, everyone, thank you for joining us. Hey, computeramerica.com, that's really the only place you need to know. And catch us here, same time, same place, tomorrow, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.